Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Corner Talks podcast. I have a friend here, talented artist, Jazé Leads. How are you?
Good. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Can't complain. It's a beautiful day from what I see. And,
I
just
know.
living life. How are you doing during these crazy times?
I'm doing all right. I think everybody's just trying to find a way to stay sane and keep themselves entertained and busy, especially with this third lockdown, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there's just constant uncertainty and there's just constant just unpredictable circumstances. Like I said, it's crazy. We're both in the artist kind of industry, so we don't know whether we're coming or we're going.
Yeah.
It's flattering to know that the media industry is considered essential. I get it yelled at or commented like, "How is that essential?" But I'm not complaining. I love that the arts is considered essential and it's important
Hmm.
for our mental health, and that's something why I brought you on the podcast as well. As much as I see that you're talented, I know that you're an advocate about mental health and well-being, and just expressing ways in which you can become the best individual you can, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, having said that, when we first connected on Instagram, I took a look at your profile and I noticed in the bio it just said artist,
Yeah.
and it had the emojis of film strip, a clock, and a microphone. And I wanted to know it. Yeah, I was the clock was what threw me off. I didn't know what that was, but
Yeah.
I wanted to know, like, what kind of artist do you classify as with these emojis?
Man. um, Honestly, I've changed my bio so many times. I think in the beginning I had a mental health advocate written in my bio, but then as I started to do like more advocacy work, I was like, it's 2021. I don't think I need to classify myself as a mental health advocate. Like, I don't need to state it. I feel like everybody kind of should already be one, right?
Right.
To a certain degree. Um, but I understand like why an advocate versus somebody who's not really talking about it too much would stand out. But just for
Hmm.
myself, I was just like, you know what, I think I don't want to claim that space because I want it to be because the whole purpose for me about talking about mental health is to normalize the conversation.
Yeah.
But that's why I guess I changed it to artist, because
Yeah.
I was like, it just interweaves a little bit of everything that I do. And then I realized, okay, I don't really do a specific thing. There's so many things that I'm doing, right?
Right.
Um, the modeling is like a hobby that I do, but music is something that I've always been kind of doing, which is kind of like the microphone being there.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
But it also just like was a way for me. The microphone also kind of just states for me is voicing your opinion and voicing your experience
Mm.
as a human being, allowing and believing that you have a voice. And I feel like that's what art does for artists.
Yeah. Because
Um,
I wanted to interject though, like with the microphone, it's a megaphone. It's not really a microphone, I should say. So it's kind
yeah,
of like a powerful, like you said, a powerful statement about expressing your voice.
yeah, and the film strip comes from the idea of me capturing those moments that I'm going on through my journey, but also just a project that I wanted to work on, or like it's still figuring out how to get going. Is just
Right.
these series of short visuals, um, done in a very abstract, almost poetic way in a
Hmm.
sense, sharing kind of like the content that I'm sharing now, but with visuals instead of just imagery. And like cinematography and film is just something I've always been a fan of, and I always like want to learn more about it and build that skill
Hmm.
more.
Yeah, for sure. And I noticed you posted something because I have a mutual friend
Yeah.
about film stars. And is
Hmm.
that how you're kind of channeling your kind of passion, your creativity for film through this organization?
Yeah, I think that's the idea that the project of the idea that I wanted to work on. I was like, okay, so where do I start in terms of learning how to get my hands wet with the equipment?
Right.
So I applied to the program, and then they took me on as the director of leading that the short film that we did.
Nice.
So it was a good experience. It was, I think it wasn't really like, I wouldn't call myself a full-on director, but like it was a cool experience to be mentored by everybody else on how to do things on set, I guess.
And like you said, like get your hands wet, or, just get involved and take that leap. I myself as a director now, remember the times when even last year, I think it was the first time I was dealing with actors because I shot a first short film that was scripted. And, just overcoming that fear.
Hmm.
But we're also reminding yourself, like, this is what I want to do. I have to show up. Even if I
Yeah.
fail, I have to at least tell myself I gave it my all. And
Hmm.
I commend you for that. The fact that you have this interest and this passion for filmmaking, and a lot of people won't show up and give it a shot. And the fact that you put yourself out there directing, and you went up against people that, like you said, you don't really know, but they were
Yeah.
acted as mentors.
Hmm.
Um, is a testament to your character. Being strong and resilient. Like, just again, I'm a huge advocate, and I commend people that just have that bravery to pursue something that a lot of people don't see as common. So,
Yeah. No,
yeah,
thank you. It honestly, it's a vulnerable thing. People, I don't think people realize, like,
yeah, yeah,
unless you're like not making the art yourself,
for sure.
always jumping into making an art and then knowing that you're going to put it out there in public.
Yep.
It's, I think sometimes it's just terrifying, especially when it's like something personal that you're sharing.
And a lot of people might not, yeah, exactly. And a lot of people will look at directing, cinematography, and they'll say,
Hmm.
well, how could it be that vulnerable? You're behind the camera. And you don't realize that, for example, a cinematographer, if that shot is grainy or it doesn't come across as focused, people watching will be like, well, who took this? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
like that vulnerability of your work is out there. So that's why we have that self-conscious attitude of, yeah, you got to have the best, um, you got to put the best out there that you can.
exactly. Yeah.
And directing, yeah, is like the epitome, because you are the captain of the ship. You are like the top. And if a film is overall bad or poor, most
Hmm.
likely they will say, well, where was the director? The actors lack direction, right? You hear those terms all the time. So
Yeah,
no matter which way you put it, that's why I kind of look, I don't know if you have the same approach, where it's like the best way to fight that vulnerability is just accept that no matter what we choose in life, there's always going to be that. That
that
moment of,
naysayer.
yeah, exactly, that naysayer, yeah,
Yeah.
hater, yeah, don't get me started on that. There's all kinds naysayers, or people that um yeah, just don't see the dream as much as you do, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure you've experienced that as well. I wanted to ask, that emoji with the clock, what does it represent for you?
Oh yeah. So the clock emoji, like for me, it ties in with with the little philosophy that I have underneath Memento Mori.
Oh yeah, I wanted to ask you about
Uh,
that, but yeah, please explain.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Memento Mori translates to remember we all must die. Um, and I think overall my philosophies of life have become very stoic. Um, so in terms of that time piece keeps me like in the present, or is a reminder of staying in the present moment, knowing that the inevitability of life is always literally right there. Sometimes it could be right around the corner and you never know. So as much as we think we have a lot of time, that we have a lot of time, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. We have a lot of time, but then it's almost like we don't have a lot of time.
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
It reminds me of one of my inspirations, Gary Vee. He
Hmm.
says, like, all my life I've been told, parents, and I'm from an Italian background, so they're always
Hmm.
like, life is short. You better know what you're doing because you can mess it up. Like, just very rough around the edges in a way.
Yeah.
Um, there's no room for really the arts, and if you go for it, you got to prove yourself. But then you come
Yeah.
across someone like Gary Vee, um, and he's like, a serial entrepreneur that believes life is long. And
Yeah.
first time I'll be honest, I heard that because again, all my life, I don't know if it's the environment that I was raised, I would always hear life is short.
Yeah.
And when I realized, when he was saying life is long, it's kind of like what you're saying is, anything could happen at any
Hmm.
time. And we're probably, are in our 20s, we're young, and we're saying to ourselves, oh, these people have made it by this age. But in reality, it doesn't really matter what age you are. I was telling a
Yeah.
friend on the last podcast, like, there's this joke, like, people say on Instagram, oh, you're 22, you're getting old, or 25. And I'm laughing. I'm saying, well, what does Drake have to say? Like, he's pushing 40 and he lives a lifestyle that's more youthful than any of us. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I just kind of like always go back to that. And I think it's a healthy attitude towards when you pursue something as audacious as, a filmmaking career, right? Is to
Yeah.
tell yourself, it could happen at any time. A lot of my heroes, they made it like Tarantino in their 30s, Scorsese.
Yeah.
They weren't like, superstars at 20 years old. That's where they were building their skills.
Yeah.
Um,
And kind of like what you're going off of what you're saying, it's like, I feel like well, in society, there's these pressures that we feel that we have to hit certain marks of achievements with certain things
yes.
by a certain life age. But like you said, a lot of these big time directors, filmmakers, singers, actors, a lot of them end up making it later on in life, but it's through a lot of trials and tribulations that they go through in their early stages. And usually you don't really know what you're doing in the early stages, you're figuring it
Yeah, for
out.
sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
And even
And you,
I
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
sorry, I was gonna say, even when you make it to the top, um, kind of like an idea just I was taking from my meditation this morning was understanding that we're always learning, but there's always still a lot more to learn. Even when you think you know it all or you've learned it all, there's still so much more to unlearn to make space for a new perspective that we might be missing out on.
For sure. And that was beautifully put because it reminds me back to my grandmother. She would say it was a saying in Italian,
Hmm.
and it sounds much better what I'm about to say, but basically, she would always tell my mom, who passed that down to us,
Yeah.
the 90-year-old woman still learn something new every day.
Hmm.
And you hear that as a kid, and you're like, what? How does that make sense? And you get older, and you start to realize, wow, like you even when you think you know it, you don't. Like there's always something to learn. There's always something to improve on,
Yeah.
and it doesn't always have to be in the arts. It has to be about you and as an individual. This
Yeah.
pandemic has, enlightened me and made me realize like a lot of things that I was not doing right. I'm not perfect. I didn't
Hmm.
come out of it like a superstar, but there's a lot of things that I think it exposed people in a way and made
Yeah.
you like kind of force yourself to sit alone with your thoughts. I think that's a lot reason why a lot of people struggle with this lockdown and the pandemic itself is they weren't really forced to sit themselves down and think and reflect on who they are, or be busy with who they are. They were
Yeah.
always dependent on going out or going to the club, going to the bar. What are your views on that? Like how the pandemic planned out? Like, do you think it affected you the same way, or did it help you channel your artistry better?
I think it definitely uh, it took me both ways. It did challenge me
Right.
in my interest and like art in a good way. But then in about like I guess the bad part was it challenged my mental health a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, but I think that's what like majority of us like it challenged our mental health. I'm pretty sure most of the population has had like a breakdown or two at least
Yeah.
once over these three lockdowns.
Yeah.
Um, but like for me, I guess it was good in a sense where I was kind of already in a period of isolation before the pandemic even started.
Mm.
But that isolation came from me dealing with things that I was going through with my mental health journey.
Mm.
Um, and I was dealing with major depressive disorder. So I
Mm.
already had kind of thrown myself into very deep isolation, and I was very isolated from society for a while. Um, for about a year, I would say. Like I had taken myself off of social media, and I had committed myself to pulling myself out of whatever I was going through, and showing up and going to therapy consistently, taking the time off of. Well, I had graduated school, so my at that point it was I just had to be relentless for myself,
Yeah.
and show up for myself. So everything else got put on hold, and it was just me, my mental health, and me going to therapy like a few times a week, and connecting with people that were going through the same things as me. And then I got thrown into the pandemic. After all that happened, like I was still dealing with all that, but then the pandemic came, and when the pandemic came, it was kind of like a little bit of a turning point for me, where now I was like coming out in a better mind state, and I was really picking up the momentum of um, fighting for myself and really pulling myself out of those dark thoughts. Um, and I used it I used all that energy and channeled it into my music. And that's when I really started to, I feel like, write some of the most heartfelt, emotional music that
Right.
I've really written. Because all those experiences, I was able to channel them, whereas before I had to process them. But now I was able to channel them and sit with them and just allow it to be therapeutic for myself without the idea of like, oh, this is going to go onto social media or whatever. Because I feel like when that happens, that's another conversation. But like
Yeah, for
social
sure.
media has trained our brains to start creating in a way where it's automatically looking for the next dopamine hit now,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
And we're all victims of it. No matter, how tough or strong you think you are, you're human, and it's
Yeah.
been proven. It's through our nature that we seek it, and social media has found a way to exploit it.
Yeah.
The Social Dilemma, that documentary on Netflix. I could have told you that, before that documentary came out, that there were people pulling strings, figuring out a way to make it more addictive. It's a
Yeah.
business at the end of the day, it's a product,
Yeah.
and they need people to, that's what marketing is. Unfortunately, it's advertising to the insecure. And the
Hmm.
only way you sell your product is making you feel that you need it more than they need you. Right.
Yeah.
So I really respect your transparency, and, because it takes a lot of courage, what you just said about you were going through that depressive state for
Hmm.
that year. A lot of people will see that as weakness, but in reality, it's strength to talk about these subjects. And the fact that you have the courage to even go to therapy and talk about your problems, like communicate them with someone. A lot of people fear that.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if you cross paths with people that they have that attitude, like don't tell people your problems, or you shouldn't be an open book. And while you
Hmm.
shouldn't be those things, um, I'm a huge believer in consolement. I'm a huge believer in having that opportunity to discuss with someone, you know, what, like, just having that trust,
Yeah.
and sympathize, empathy, I should mention, not even
Hmm.
sympathize, but just empathetic. Like, okay, maybe you can't relate entirely to that person, what they're going through, like what you said about the depressive state, but I can at
Hmm.
least put myself in your shoes, because same here. A year before the pandemic, I was going through a career change. I wasn't really sure of myself. I was feeling very lost.
Hmm.
And I can relate to that. You go through that. And then the pandemic, I started this business, 94 Productions. I got my clients lined up, everything's ready to go. And then the
Yeah.
pandemic hits, and it's like another obstacle.
Yeah.
And I think the best way to look at it, right, is, you know, what have you, maybe it was meant to happen because there's more things you grew from it, right? You progressed in a different way, whether it was your
Yeah.
mental health, maybe your artistic career, new hobbies I discovered, like with my artworks. What sort of things have you discovered through this pandemic?
I think for me, it was a lot of music, music related
Music, yeah,
things.
yeah.
A lot more. My writing got much better, but I
Nice,
think that's
nice.
because I had the clarity.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
My writing got much better, and I started to teach myself piano. I wanted to like pick up guitar. I'm not the best at those
I saw
yet.
an Instagram story, by the way, about that. That was really nice that you're picking up an instrument.
Yeah, no, thank
Yeah,
you. And then I don't know if you know, I have a theater and film background. I went to school for theater and film studies
nice.
at McMaster. So now I'm figuring out throughout the pandemic, I was trying to figure this out too. I was like, how do I translate that into the modern day world now? Like, once you've gotten that degree, you're done school. Now, how do I put myself out there
Yeah,
with everything that I learned?
for sure.
So I was using the pandemic as time to kind of figure out what I wanted to do, the next steps, where now I was mentally ready to kind of face those next steps as well. But yeah, I think those were like a few of the biggest realizations. And then just personally, I feel like I've changed. I did change a lot overall. And I feel like people that are following my journey are seeing me evolve and seeing me change
Mm-hmm.
from when I decided to put myself back out there again. So it's like it's an ongoing journey.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, for sure. And you can always tell by a person's like Instagram page, who they are.
Hmm.
It's a reflection, right? And that's
Yeah.
what I want to get into is, when I first came upon your page, it's not your typical page of, you going out and, partying, and there's like a whole bunch of people around you. It's very peaceful. It's very serene, and you seem like very content and very happy. And there's a lot of photography, but it serves a story. There's a lot of, powerful captions as well. There's even
Mhm.
one post of, you use your voice. I should mention that your voice is very soothing, but it's also very powerful.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, it's just because when I was listening to this, I'm like, oh, maybe this is like one of those things she found on the internet and she's posting. Those people that like say, oh, I was inspired by this. And I'm listening to it because this is the first time I should mention we've talked.
Yeah.
I should say webcam to webcam or hearing your voice. So I had no idea like, what you sounded like. But then I was like listening more and more, and I said, oh my God, this is her. And she's
Yeah.
giving a very powerful speech again about well-being. And
Mhm.
um, I was just, it was just a very powerful voice, and it was a commanding voice. Like it made you want to listen,
Yeah.
and it was very calming and such. Have you ever considered going into like podcasting or doing some sort of those YouTube meditation practices with your voice?
Um, I've considered doing like podcasting in the
Yeah, yeah.
sense of like, you know what? I did do a few interviews and conversations with people
Nice.
throughout this pandemic, but then I realized I was like, you know what? I'm like, what am I doing? I'm doing like 5, 10 different things at one time. I was like, the music needs to get done if I start trying to go into podcasting because
Mhm.
I wanted to like share conversations and journeys of like pieces of other people's journeys with their mental health, what they were willing to talk about and share, and kind of launch a platform for that. But like, yeah, I was just like, maybe this isn't the right time for it. And then I think overall, more than the podcasting, I really wanted to bring those people's stories and journeys to life visually,
Mm.
more so than like with the podcast. Because I was like, yeah, podcasting is great, right? Great in terms of like giving people that conversation. But then
Right.
visually, I feel like they're not really like visually, it enables sharing those kind of stories will really allow people to connect and build empathy and compassion and understand mental health a little bit more.
Yeah. No, for sure. It's the visual medium is something so powerful. I'm a visual learner.
Yeah.
That's how I uh, you know, learn, educate
Yeah.
myself through visuals.
Yeah.
That's why filmmaking. I think that's another reason why you're found a passion in it is if you're a visual person, like that's what the whole art form is about.
Yeah.
Show, don't tell. And the more you show and the more effective you are at showing things and
Hmm.
not telling it, you become a master, like the
Yeah.
great Alfred Hitchcock. A lesson for filmmakers listening that I just want to throw out there is when you're starting out, I never had the equipment to record dialogue. I didn't have the connections for a sound person. And I did
Hmm.
everything, pretty much myself. I became self sufficient. And there was no audio, there was just music
Yeah.
that was used to tell the story.
Hmm.
And I think that's the best way to really like learn your craft in the beginning is force yourself without people telling the audience what's happening,
Yeah.
use it through visuals or music, kind of like what you're doing. And people don't realize like music is very visual as well.
It is
Um,
very.
when yeah, like when I listen to music, it helps. First of all, it helps me to create and think of ideas, and it also helps me to execute on them, whether it's editing or setting up a certain shot. As
Hmm.
a director, how has music played a role?
As a director, I mean, I'm a learning director, but
As a learning director, or I should say, someone in the film industry, a
um,
filmmaker.
I would say music plays a huge impact, especially like, okay, when you think about when you're going to movies and you
Yeah,
end up in tears, you're not just in tears because of the great actors, like actors,
right.
acting skills. It's because of the lighting and the ambiance that's been created,
That's true.
that's hitting those emotional points for us.
Yeah,
Um, because, yeah, lighting carries so much emotion too, the way we light somebody, and it projects that emotion through the screen to the
yeah,
audience. And it all works in conjunction together, even with the sound, the type of soundtrack you lay on. If it's, say, instrumentals, and those instrumentals are more of a brighter sound or more of a duller sound, or deeper, darker sound,
yeah,
they're all portraying different emotions. All of those pitches and tones and melodies, like, just overall, it sound is so huge in balancing the ambiance that's already being created by lighting, actors, costumes, and everything, right?
Yeah, the filmmaking experience is, something uh, that you can't replicate. Like it's something that I for sure miss. And being on a set is, it's just enthralling. You're
Mhm.
excited about everything that comes your way. Like you said with the music, about how it just works, in unison,
Yeah,
how it works together and how it really amplifies the experience. And when you hit all the right notes, like lightning in a bottle, it transcends the work.
yeah.
You get the right actor, you get the right music, the score,
Hmm.
cinematography, right? And that's why I asked you that, is because, someone who's in film, music plays such a huge role. And you clearly have an education and some experience going into filmmaking with a music background. Like for
Hmm.
myself, like I don't know, or I'm not picking up an instrument like you are with piano. I'm not, I can't sing. But at the same time, I respect music enough to understand the part it plays in film. And I think that's a huge advantage for yourself, coming in with that musical background.
Hmm.
Do you have a preference though, like in terms of because you sound like a triple threat. You sound like you can write, you can act, direct,
No, you're
you
just
can
being too
music.
kind.
Do you kind? Oh no, I just no, because I'm saying, because what I'm trying to get at is, are you um going towards a specific path, or are you just trying anything with the arts? Like are you aspiring to be a musical artist, or is it more of an actor or a director?
Um, Man, I feel like I don't feel like a triple threat.
Okay.
I feel like a bit of a man. I feel kind of feel flustered sometimes because I'm just like, okay, maybe I need to niche down more.
Yeah,
Maybe I need to like focus on certain things. But then a part of me is like, mm, yeah, I can niche down, but like that doesn't mean I can't still try out this avenue. I think with music, it's just like a project that I'm working on and I want to release the project. It's I don't I love performing live and I would love to be able to do that, but with the way the pandemic and everything's going on, I doubt we're gonna have like concerts and things like that for a really long time.
for sure. Yeah.
So for me right now, it's like what can I like I can only focus on writing the music, executing the project, and executing the visuals for the project.
Right.
But another part of me is really interested in, um, like I said, directing those visual stories that I was like the visual project that I want to do, and getting into acting a little bit, and maybe even possibly like writing a little bit more.
Hmm.
Yeah, like small things like that. Writing, I haven't really gone into too much, but
When you say writing though, are you talking about like screenplays, like, or just creative, like stories, like thoughts? What kind of
um,
writing are you discussing?
I meant like so I do like creative writing, but I mean
Okay.
like screenwriting, I haven't
Oh,
gotten
okay. So
into.
for film, yeah.
Yeah,
So you're
yeah,
tackling that. Yeah. It's not easy, definitely, staring at the blank page, but
yeah. No, for sure.
it's have you, so you haven't really, you're saying picked it up, or you're slowly kind of approaching it?
I feel like I'm learning to pick up the acting part
Hmm.
of like the ins and outs of where should you start, what do you need to do, how do you get it together.
Right, right.
Um, and that's only because people have told me to consistently go into it. And I never really thought about it too much. And then I was like, now I'm at a point where I'm like, yeah, why am I holding back and not believing in myself, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then slowly through all my experiences, I was like, wow, this would be like a really good short film that I could make out of my own experience. But
Yeah.
like I would need to find the right people to, I guess, help me bring it together.
Yeah,
Like
no,
even just
yeah.
word wise, right?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing for me as well. Like when I write, or if I
Hmm.
come up with a really cool idea, or finish the story, I'm
Hmm.
always like, well, how does this happen? How do I make it happen? Right, the locations and, the sound. I keep saying sound because it's so important
Yeah,
in movies, right? Like if the sound's not there, you won't listen to the story. You won't listen to what's happening, the actors.
it's true.
Um, so I'm the kind of guy where if I'm producing a film, I always make sure that we have a sound guy. I even call him
Yeah.
God on the set.
Yeah.
because if that sound's not working, you have no scene.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just brings me back to a moment when I was on set and I was ready to yell action, and the sound guy taps me on the shoulder and he goes, "We can't start yet. There's a buzzing noise." I'm like, "I don't hear anything." Like it was quiet like this, like I can't hear anything.
Yeah.
And he puts on the headphones he's wearing and he's like, "You hear that?" And I'm like, "Wow!" And it was like loud. I'm like, "Okay, we're stopping." And we
Yeah.
stopped for about 5 minutes. He's like, "We can continue." I'm like, "Thank," because I'm so fortunate I had that guy there because
Hmm.
I would have yelled action. We would have done the scene. What if it was a really good take and you
Yeah.
edit it and you just hear like bzzz, and while people are speaking, it'll throw
Yeah.
throw off the whole scene. So critical, um, and it goes right along with music. It's so critical to have the right notes. You know, really tell that story, tell that scene properly as it was intended. I want to go
Yeah.
back to mental health. Um, because again, I know it's something that you're an advocate of, and it's even something that was stated in your bio,
Mhm.
or it used to be. Why do you feel it's important that we discuss mental health?
Um, well, there's many reasons, but overall, I think just for the fact of that we're human beings and we need to take care of like such a huge part of ourselves, our mental health, and the fact that most of us deny the reality of how much damage our mental health can do, or deny the reality of how serious mental health can be, um, is kind of a reason why like it kind of launched me into talking about it more. But I think the biggest reason for me was bringing it to social media, bringing it to like my group of like friends in the beginning that I was just
Hmm.
sharing it with, um, was to blur the lines of like reality and social media. Because it's like, yeah, you're not supposed to post your down, like you're not supposed to post your downs, you're not supposed to post your low moments. It's all supposed to be a highlight reel, or yeah, like you're supposed to look happy or whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and I know like I know my pictures look well put together, but usually like I
yeah.
share. But that's just 'cause visually I have OCD and like visually making things look good
No, for
together.
sure. Yeah.
But I always share a little bit of vulnerability in the post or whatever I'm writing. Sometimes I'll delete stuff, where I'm like, okay, I don't know if I'm ready to share this, or because I'm afraid of the backlash, and that comes from the stigma, right?
Yeah, of course.
So then I'm like, yeah, this is exactly why I'm doing this work, like to fight whatever I'm feeling. Because if I'm feeling it, I know that there's a lot of other people out there that are feeling it too.
Yeah, our art is just so subjective, I should
Yeah,
say. Like it really is. Obviously, there's movies that we can collectively agree like it's not good. Um,
yeah,
but for the most part, especially at the level that we're at,
mm-hmm,
like who I always say, like, who are you to judge? And
mm-hmm,
for the people that go, like a big thing for me, if you criticize, that's fine. Everyone's entitled to an opinion.
yeah,
But I can only listen to your critique if it's intelligible, well spoken. You can back it up really. And
mm-hmm,
you know, too many people nowadays get caught up in, oh, this person called it crap, or
yeah,
this person said it sucked, and it's like, yeah, exactly. They just said that word. Now
yeah,
ask them like the reasons. For example, like you post a piece of music. Imagine
mm-hmm,
if I was just like, oh, it sucks. It's like, okay, thanks. And then you ask me, okay, why did it suck? I'm like, I don't know.
yeah,
I just felt that way. It's like, okay, move on. Like everyone's gonna have an opinion.
yeah,
If I come along and say, obviously in a nice way, you don't just say it sucks. You say, listen, I just wasn't understanding the lyrics. I think certain parts didn't really make sense for me. Not
mm-hmm,
that you're going to change it, but you're going to work with that. You're going to say, okay, I can see where he's coming from. I
yeah,
can see where his mind was going, and you can
mm-hmm,
respect the person more and more. Too many people on social media go. It's so easy to just tell someone that worked really hard or just is feeling confident in the moment to post something and
mm-hmm,
just say, oh, it's trash or it sucks. Now, I've been
yeah,
very fortunate, and I'm sure you have, where we're not in that limelight where we're constantly being bombarded like a celebrity.
yeah,
But at the same time, I have gone through moments where people have just told me like, "Oh, this is trash,"
mm-hmm,
and it used to bother me a lot.
mm-hmm,
But then I started to realize, like, hold on, like, where are they coming from with this? Like, do they have an argument like why it's trash. Now, if it's trash and they don't like it, that's fair. That's their opinion. But
Hmm.
I always like to know, understand. Maybe that's the artist in me. Like, why doesn't that person like it? And I
Yeah.
think the best and the most healthy way to approach it is to not really question why. It just
Hmm.
is. You know what I mean? Like that's their opinion, and
Yeah.
someone else will have another opinion.
Yeah, it's true. It's like sometimes, yeah, you can't really question why it is the way it is. And you can
Hmm.
apply that to like life and your experiences with people because in the same way somebody might do something, um, but like we can question them. We might be hurt by what they did, but like that's just sometimes that's just the way they are and they're not willing to change or develop themselves. So
Right.
that's where you decide, do I take this person along with me on my journey or do I not? Just like, do
Yeah.
I take that piece of advice with me or do I not?
Yeah. Obviously, if it's
Yeah.
toxic, like I'm a firm believer, and if it gets really out of hand, you gotta just block them, or both literally on the app or maybe out of your life. You can't.
Yeah.
I don't believe in toxic fake people,
Yeah.
because they'll just bring you down, right?
Yeah.
But if they're just saying an opinion and they're coming
Hmm.
by, like one guy I remember when I first launched my hoodies, they were back when it was just black and gray.
Hmm.
He was just like, it made me laugh because he's like, some guy just comments, they look great, but I find them cheesy. Could have done better. And it was literally just a random guy. I have no idea who it is from Arizona. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I smiled, but I also was like, what's happening? But obviously I forgot it. Like I remember it because of the story, but I'm saying is like,
Yeah.
I just thought it was just so random. Like it was just a single comment. There, no one else commented, just this one guy. And
Yeah.
he just felt that day to make his voice heard and tell me how he really felt about these hoodies.
Yeah.
And this is what I mean by people are always going to comment. People are always going to throw something out there.
I know.
And
And usually it's like sometimes it's just a random person.
yeah,
They,
no, but that's what I mean. I don't mean to like undermine the guy, but he literally to me was a random person. He was some guy.
yeah.
You look at his profile, he had like two posts following like 7,000 people, and who knows if it was a spam account.
Yeah.
Uh, and it was just like nowhere near where I'm, Toronto, nowhere near where we live, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I just thought that was a funny instance, and it just goes to show that no matter what you do, there's always going to be someone commenting, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's in. I like what you said about you take it down sometimes because of that stigma, but again, I think it's the artist in our who we are at heart, like that
Yeah.
aesthetic, because
Hmm.
people will say like, oh, just post it. Like Gary Vee, for example, I'll bring him up again.
Yeah.
He goes, too many people are making their Instagram page look like a gallery, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that's fair. I know what he's trying to say. Like, don't curate it so much. But at the
Hmm.
same time, you, myself, if you have an eye for something, if you have an eye for detail, you don't want it to be too sporadic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You want it to have some sort of story, some sort. Because again, we're artists at
Yeah.
the end of the day. We love that.
Yeah.
That calms us. That appeals to us. That's what's attractive.
Hmm.
Um, so what I'm saying is, you have to find that balance,
Yeah. Where it
right?
doesn't like control every, like you're able to let loose a little
Exactly.
bit. Yeah. And I feel like
Like,
I've kind of started, sorry to cut you
no,
off.
no, no. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I was like, in the beginning, I felt like, I was very, it, like you said, my Instagram is very serene and peaceful. But then I felt like, wow, am I being too serious on here? I'm like, I'm not really showcasing like that's not me in real life 24/7, like
No, yeah,
in
yeah,
that
for sure.
mindset. But just like, just a much more lighthearted part of me where I was like, yeah, I was maybe I didn't want to like share too much of myself on social media before, just different parts of me. But now I'm kind of like as I'm growing and developing personally, mentally, it's me changing the decisions for myself. And I'm like, yeah, it's okay. Like it's completely okay when people say you're allowed to wake up the next day and have this like have be a new person, come from a new slate, and we all have that choice to
But
make those
yeah,
choices every day.
no, for sure. But it's okay. Also, a big thing for me is, some days you just wake up and you don't feel like doing what you love or doing anything for
Yeah.
whatever reason. Like life gets in the way. It's not
Hmm.
seamless. It's not perfect.
Yeah.
And what I was trying to say about your profile is, take it what you will. It just came across really classy because you see a lot of profiles nowadays, and it's just again
Hmm.
very sporadic. But
Hmm.
what I'm saying is like you'll post something where you were just giving a meditative experience. You were talking into the microphone,
Yeah.
and just that one post changed how I saw you. It wasn't just, photographs and modeling and things like that. It was, oh, like when you posted that, I said she respects well-being and mental health and she's an advocate of it,
Mm-hmm.
for you to post something like that. So it's again, to have that transparency, to have that balance. And yeah, it's something that, again, a lot of people struggle with, a lot of people don't want to be open to.
Yeah.
Like a big thing for me is I've never uh, posted these corner talks. Well, I didn't have the idea conceived, but just my
Mm-hmm.
artworks and like just conversations like this. Um, because I always felt it needed to be the right production value, maybe fancy edits and things like that in order to be worthy
Right.
of posting.
Mm-hmm.
And I would always keep my cinematography posts up, like stills of short films that I shot.
Yeah.
And then I said to myself, I could still keep it aesthetic if I just put it out there, be honest. Some people can be inspired from it. They also see what I do, like having you on the podcast. You can look back and say, oh, this is what he means by he's going to have a conversation with me.
Mm-hmm.
And it just shows a different side of me, right? It just shows
Yeah.
that I'm not the guy that's always shooting, um, taking a film, directing a scene. I'm the guy that likes to talk about these conversations because they're
Yeah.
important conversations to me.
Mm-hmm.
They're important conversations to all of us, whether we like it or not. People are just more vocal about them than others.
Yeah. And I appreciate that you were able to do that. I appreciate that about you, that you're able to showcase that side to you. And it's true. Sometimes we feel like it's kind of like it's about like niching down again. You feel like you need to stay in that little niche. And you can't like branch out. But I think it was Gary Vee as well that also shared like we're in the generation of and now where it's like everybody's doing one thing and the other and the other.
So true. So true.
So it's yeah, like I feel like this pandemic financially, the financial situation that we're all in, it is become like the and generation.
And even a
Not
career. Yeah. And even, sorry, what were you going to say?
yeah, yeah, no worries.
No, no, no. I was just, the career perspective as well, right? Like there's
Hmm.
financial, of course, people suffering in debt, things like that. And then a big thing for me too is like the career, like back then I feel like it was very straightforward.
Yeah.
And now there's just so many options. And, even if you do have an inclination for the arts, if you have some sort of desire to go that direction, it seems
Hmm.
so much more competitive,
Yeah.
right? Like back then, our parents' generation, you say you wanted to
Hmm.
get into film, you probably wouldn't get the best support, but you would at least um, feel special in a way. Like I want to get into film, like no one else is going into film,
Yeah.
right? But again, you can't let that stop you. You have to just kind of look away from that and say, what do I want to do? And block out really everyone's path and vision.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. I don't know if you struggle with this, but like whether it's conscious or subconsciously, we compare ourselves, and especially with people that are in a very similar career path.
Yeah.
How do you have you experienced this
I do.
comparison?
I feel
Yes.
like I experience it all the time with
Yeah.
music.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Uh like I feel like every time I put up a post, I think everybody's already anticipating me dropping dropping my album like next the
Drop a
next
banger.
day.
That's what they say. Yeah.
But it's like guys, I'm just posting a picture. Like I'm
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
to drop any music yet. Um so I'm always like, oh shit. Every time I like feel that pressure because one of my friends will be like, oh, we've been warned. We're waiting like with so much enthusiasm or whatever. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
okay, like this journey, I'm like, I'm not gonna let myself feel pressured because for me, and like I don't want to put out my music until I have created that vision that I'm seeing for it. And I don't want to compromise that vision just
Right.
because just because I feel the pressure of like, oh, I should have had a song out by now, or I should have had this done by now.
Yeah.
Not that it needs to be perfect, but I'm realizing as I'm like meeting people along the way that like are working with me through this music journey, sometimes it's the vision I'm coming in with is being molded into like what they want or what they think is what the industry wants. But to me, I'm like, I don't care what the industry wants
Yeah. You
right
can't.
now.
The market will decide, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not about the industry. It used to be about the industry, but now it's the
Mhm.
market. Myself, I'm a client, just like you are, or a consumer, I should say, just like you are a consumer of my stuff, and you will
Mhm.
decide with a collection of everyone else
Yeah,
if it's good or not. It
yeah,
really just comes down to that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like you put it out and it doesn't do well, it doesn't do well. That doesn't matter. It doesn't take away, it doesn't mean it's no longer art. It doesn't mean it's no longer valuable or it's worthy. But because when we go back to thinking about like social media in terms of how we all interacted with it, there's so much pressure of not just like, I guess, doing well with your art, but there's all that pressure of your following, your
Yeah.
interaction, and all of that. But when you think about it, it's really just like a big illusion. Like people will be moody, they'll unfollow you. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't mean like people won't follow you because they're not into well-being or like they're not into like development and all that. Like,
Or there's petty things like they don't want I know this because I've come across characters like that where they
yeah.
admit I don't want my following to be too high than my followers.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Right? Like it's
ridiculous.
something so like simple as that. Now, again, you don't want to be following everybody, right? That
Yeah.
follows you back. You want to have some sort of boundary, like I like their stuff. I'm going to follow them because then your feed's going to
Yeah.
be bombarded. But
Yeah.
to just say that, right? Because if you like their stuff, you should at least support but
Yeah.
again, you can't predict it. And I'm so glad you're speaking like this. Like
Yeah.
I used to always think, I used to always try to, I guess maybe that's the storyteller in me. Like, oh,
Hmm.
why is that person acting that way? Like, why is it? And then I realized, like, this is not a movie. Like, in a movie, you're like a character, you need to tell the audience why a character is acting a certain way, or else it doesn't make sense. They're a cartoon
Yeah.
character.
Hmm.
In real life, we don't know that. Obviously,
Yeah.
they have their own motives, but we can't dive into their psyche. We have no idea where they're coming from. We have no idea what they're thinking. Like you said, it could be
Yeah.
something as simple as they forgot to follow. They don't want their following to increase.
Hmm.
Um, Genuinely they didn't like your stuff. You don't know.
Yeah.
And yeah, the best approach is just constantly being putting stuff out there. And you
Yeah.
never, like, I'm a big believer too of putting things out in the universe, just
Hmm.
kind of going to bed saying, hey, I did the best I could,
Yeah.
like I gave it my shot,
Yeah.
because I hate people saying, I think it's my mother would always tell me this: don't allow people to speak. And you hear it at face value, and you're like, well, everyone's gonna say something. But what she always taught and instilled in me, what she was trying to say is, don't give anyone the opportunity uh, to say you should have done it like this or should have done it like that. Obviously,
Hmm.
they're gonna still say it, but you have to know in your heart, you have to be confident enough in your heart to say, I did the best I could. For instance, with filmmaking,
Yeah.
right, or your dream,
Hmm.
you don't last thing you want is for someone like myself or someone like anyone to come along and say, well, you say you like music, but are you making music, are you putting stuff out? And it's like, in your heart, yeah, I am, I did,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
I gave it my all.
Yeah.
And I can't control what the outcome is, but at least I gave it my all. Because we know so many people that they want to be a director, they want to be a comedian, they want to be an actor, a musician,
Hmm.
and you'll hear them say, but I got stuff to do, like I got a day job, I got it. It's like, okay, I understand you have things in life,
Hmm.
responsibilities. But if you keep talking, I want to do this, this, and that, and you're not doing anything about it, you're not showing up at the very least.
Yeah.
How do you have anything to stand on? Like, how do you feel good? How do you go to bed at night? How do you feel good about who you are? Right.
Yeah.
So
Because they're not even taking that chance on
you're not
themselves.
even taking that chance. Yeah. And
Hmm.
it just, that's what I'm saying is like, again, this is why I go on these like rants, vents, whatever have you. It's my way of also rationalizing and making sense of this crazy world we live in because there's just
Yeah.
so much to absorb. Right.
Hmm.
And like I said, my intention with this is to always help, whether it's the guest or someone listening in, that, you know, whatever you see on my Instagram, whatever you see on your Instagram,
Yeah.
there's another story. There's another story on the other side. I show
Yeah.
my arts and I show what I create. We show what we create. But as
Hmm.
you said at the beginning of the podcast, I had no idea. Obviously, I don't know you personally,
Hmm.
um, but I still didn't know or got the impression like you were going through that depressive time. And it takes again like a lot of strength to voice that, and a lot of people don't want to discuss those matters.
Yeah.
Obviously, people are cruel. They judge you. They use it against you and things like that.
Yeah.
But you gotta be your raw self sometimes.
You have to.
That's how people
And
respect you.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, like I said, it's just like when you try to like remind yourself and approach social media with knowing that, yeah, these not letting you get your dopamine hits from followers, likes, comments, and all that. And you're just like, well, I'm gonna post it, and that's it. Like I don't care. Like you're coming into my diary a little bit. So it's like you can like stick around. I really don't care. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But like you said, we never know what's happening in somebody's psyche or their motives or whatever. So for everybody that's listening, I just hope like, if you ever felt that, it's it's not a big deal. Like in terms of don't let it define your worth. Don't let those numbers define your worth. Don't let it define your value as a person online. Your online presence is completely irrelevant to you as a human being. You as a human being is so much more important than this illusion of social media. So,
That's so well, yeah. That
yeah,
Thank you for saying that, because a lot of people, including myself, need to hear that sometimes. Because again, we get caught up, especially in a moment right now we're in isolation, and
yeah,
that's for most of us. All our human interaction
yeah,
is through social media. Right? We rely on it so much because it's gotten to a point where we can't see this, we can't do that. A work's getting canceled, or it just doesn't function the same way. It's not as normal. You're talking to
hmm,
people with a mask. It's a different experience altogether.
yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah, it's so important. And I want to lately I've been having this discussion with people, like a debate,
Hmm.
about like just inquiring with different artists about the idea of a backup plan and
Yeah.
plan B, because I'm very strategic in how I kind of see my path. So
Hmm.
it's like I give myself like goals, or certain milestones things should
Yeah.
happen. And while you can't guarantee anything in life,
Hmm.
it's important to have some sort of organized path in a way,
Yeah. Yeah.
some direction, some vision, right? But what I want to ask you is, do you believe in having a backup plan, or are you kind of just going all for the stream in music?
Well, I feel like I went to school for the idea of having a backup plan.
Mm.
Um, so part of
What'd you
me
go to
was
school for,
like,
by the way? I forgot to ask.
so theater and film studies.
Oh, right, theater and film studies.
Yeah, theater and film studies. But I feel like I ended up in theater and film studies, but my intention was to go in and become a social worker.
Oh, okay.
And so I feel like that's always just been a part of my journey. That's something that I want to do, but I don't consider like going back to school for social work as a backup plan.
Mm,
Where it's like I still want to pursue the arts. I still want to create and put out music, get into acting, create my own short visuals.
of course.
That's still like the vision, but then if I think about the longevity of my life, if I make it to having a long life, then I think about like other careers that I would want to take part in, and the other one would be social work. So I'm always like, I don't consider it a backup plan, but like that's something that like I would like to pursue.
I think I know what you mean.
Am I
Is
making sense?
No, 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 you are, because
Yeah,
this is actually something I read this morning. Another article by Gary Vee, it popped
yeah,
up, where it was like he, to my surprise, believes in a backup plan,
hmm,
not where it takes over your A plan, like the,
yeah,
the the plan that your direction, like what you want to do,
hmm,
but it's more like, for example, he does garage sailing.
hmm,
He loves to buy things and resell them, and that's his hobby, and he does that, and he makes quite a bit of money off of it, he says.
yeah,
And he kind of explains like, if this whole empire were to collapse, I would still do that to the day I die.
hmm,
However, he doesn't put as much energy or time into that. It's more like a thing he does on the weekends.
yeah,
So what he's trying to say is he still exercises a backup plan, if you think about it, by keeping it
yeah,
up. But at the same
hmm,
time, it's not something that his mind is on there every day.
yeah,
So what you're trying to say is, with social work, right? That's something you still have an interest in, you're passionate about. But it's
hmm,
not really a backup plan, because it's still an extension of who you are. It
yeah,
speaks to you.
hmm,
A backup plan, I guess, like the opposite of a backup plan, or the opposite of what you said, would be, I don't know, you wanted to get into construction.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
hey, you could do it, right? I'm sure you could
yeah,
do it, but I don't really see you doing that, based
yeah.
on knowing you so far. But
Hmm.
imagine you just say, yeah, I want to be an electrician. It's like, okay, well, that would be considered like a backup plan, because maybe you're
Yeah.
going after the salary, or you're going after the hours. I don't know.
Hmm.
But social work makes sense to me. That's actually a really cool career path for you, because I can see you doing a lot of good in that.
Yeah.
Just helping people again with their
Thank you.
well-being. Maybe that's something I should have done. I don't know. I got to reconsider. Maybe I should have minored in social work because I studied marketing, but maybe I should have done some sort of, therapeutic work because I've been told I
Yeah.
enjoy talking and, diving into people's minds, and I don't know. We'll see what
Yeah.
happens, but
It's never too late for it.
yeah, never too late. But no, but I'm too, and I don't mean to sound pretentious in any way. I just my mind, I can't sit still. Like I
Yeah.
enjoy these are creative for me,
Hmm.
but my mind's always in film. Like I'm always visualizing a story. I'm
Yeah.
always visualizing. Like even this conversation, believe it or not, is visual for me. Like I'm
Yeah.
imagining like shots, scenes, dialogue, this happening in a character perspective. Like that's what goes
Wow.
on in my mind. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just always. That's what I meant
That's really
by.
interesting.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I've just been told I think cinematically by like teachers that I've come across, and when
Hmm.
I never understood that when I was younger,
Yeah.
and I think what it is I'm extremely visual. So when I
Hmm.
say that music is visual, I literally mean like when I listen to a song, I'm
Hmm.
already thinking of like a music video. I'm already thinking of a person in it.
Yeah.
Like how they would look on the camera lens, how they would look with the shots.
Yeah.
Um, it's just where my mind goes, and that's what I mean by I should say being self-aware.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I could go for it. The social work, who knows? But is it really what's speaking to me at the moment? Like
Hmm.
I want to give it my all. I want to just go for this dream. Uh, that's why I was working at Bell. I kind of, scrapped that and I said, I just want to see where I go with this dream. Because I was doing like half and half. I had one foot in there and one foot out the other.
Yeah.
And I just want to see where I go with this, and
Hmm.
I think any artist owes it to themselves
Yeah.
if you have the opportunity, right? I'm still
Hmm.
living at home. I'm fortunate, I have a supportive family that way.
Yeah.
I saved some money up from the jobs that I used to work.
Hmm.
But this is the time I believe, I turned 26. I believe to kill it, as they say, to just go for it.
Yeah.
We have our whole lives to realign or figure out another path. A
Yeah.
lot of people will tell me go into history because you love history. I'm like, okay, I love history, but like that's not something I want to. It's like saying I want to buy a telescope because I like science. Like I'm not going to make it a career. I'm like I'm not
Yeah.
Galileo. Like I don't want to study rotations and all that. Film is what I'm obsessed with, and I think that's what you can relate when it comes to music. Like you have to look at
Mhm.
what are you obsessed with every day.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah,
And yeah, I get what you mean. Like I get what you mean. I'm at home where I'm doing the best where I'm like, okay, yeah, financially, what's the best situation for me? Figuring out a space at home, working out of home. And like you said, I have a supportive family as well. It took them a
yeah,
while to be supportive, but
yeah. No, I can. Trust me. Mine
they
was no
came
easy
around.
ride. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even till this day, they're still not super supportive. They're like, what are
Yes.
you doing?
Yes, I'm so happy you said that. I was talking to someone the other day and they're like, yeah, my parents say no backup plan. I'm like, what? I'm like, hold on, can we just clarify that? This is the
Yeah.
first time I heard a parent like actually would say that. Like
Yeah.
parents being supportive will always, like my parents,
Yeah.
they'll come around. It's the funniest thing. They'll say like, yeah, when you make it. They don't say if, when you make it. And then they'll
Yeah.
have a day where they'll go, but you got to put it into perspective. And I'm like, which it's either or, like which one? And
Yeah.
it's just parents, right? Like they love you so much they don't want to see you fail. My mom, my dad, they admitted that to me.
Yeah.
And I can understand that because if I
Hmm.
had a kid, I would be extremely protective as
Yeah.
well, seeing what is out there.
Yeah.
But you got to let them fly. You got to let them see where they end up.
Yeah, you gotta let them make their own mistakes,
Yeah.
figure out their own journey. And I know I get it. It's like completely stressful. Like I'm the oldest and I have two younger
Nice.
siblings.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's like my mindset's kind of working in the same way my parents does for me with them. But I know I can't be their parent where it's like you just gotta let them make their own mistakes.
That's so true.
Yeah.
And I think, just to tell people this, I always say it is, we wouldn't really go after it if we didn't
Hmm.
have a belief in ourselves, like that conviction that we had a shot, you
Yeah.
know? And I was telling another friend too, is it may sound selfish saying this, but I've come to realize I can't really tell someone you're going to make it because I don't know what goes on in their mind. I don't know how much work they're putting in. Only they know. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But only you
Hmm.
know in yourself and your heart if you have a shot. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Hmm.
And it's the same thing for yourself, right? As much as I commend you for your work, only you know in your heart what you've done and
Yeah.
where you see yourself. And I
Yeah.
think that's the best approach. It's not going around, because a big thing for me is like, I don't want to go around saying, I'm going to make it. It's like, no,
Hmm.
I believe that life can flip you upside down without you even realizing it. You know, like
Yeah.
nothing's guaranteed. You shouldn't be that overconfident.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with having a wish in your heart or having that confidence and security. Like,
Staying
hey, I got
hopeful. Yeah.
exactly, I got a shot, or I'm doing the best I can for this.
Yeah. And when you, for you, I think it like it depends on how much pressure we put on the idea of saying like I'm gonna make it. Because like it's what like how what do you consider that you've made it? Like what makes you what make
Exactly. Yeah.
do you get what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
No, no,
Like what are the standards of making it?
it's true. It's true. What are this that would make sense. Yeah. Like for me,
Hmm.
everyone's different, right? Like
Hmm.
for myself, making it is like Tarantino level because I love, telling a story, and I love the bigger the audience, the better. Like I just love that
Hmm.
reaction. I just grew up with that with the movie theaters. Um, but what I'm saying, yeah, exactly what you're saying about the point of making it. Like, how do you define it? Is you
Hmm.
got to just kind of you gotta like I think when we get older too, we mature. Like, what does
Yeah.
success mean to you? Like a big thing
Hmm.
for me is like when I was younger, I still have that aspiration, like the
Yeah.
Tarantino level. But when I was like in my teens, I was like, no, it's that's it. Like it has to
Hmm.
be that. And then for me, as I get older, I start to realize, okay, I'll still work towards that. But you know, what would be a big, even another successful milestone is
Hmm.
being paid to do what you love. Because
Yes.
how many of us, friends, family, we see, or just being in the workplace, like when I graduated,
Yeah.
I got that taste of what it was like to work in a job you don't like.
Hmm.
And you do it because you get the paycheck. Like
Yeah.
this passion of film, right? Or music for yourself. Um, to know that you can be successful or define success by getting paid for doing what you love is a completely separate milestone than becoming
Yeah.
famous or becoming well known. You know what I mean? It's just that's just how I've changed, or how I've seen it.
Hmm.
Is it something that you agree as well, like with regards to that?
Yeah. I feel like getting paid for your art is the dream for every artist, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but like when I think about my music, I'm like, you know what, just getting a project out there that I'm proud of. And if my vision was I was able to get it as close as possible to the vision, to me, like for music, I'll be like, okay, I did it. Like I'm proud of that. Like, and then it's like up to the consumers if
No,
they're
for
gonna
sure,
push it, right?
for sure.
Or if they enjoy it or connect with it. But for me, I guess like to make it with the music is just to like get out that creative project.
That
Um,
is the biggest step for sure.
yeah, yeah. And even like possibly collaborating with somebody that like I looked up to or somebody that, and that they don't have to be a celebrity or anything. It's just anybody that's like artistically doing something that I'm drawn to. Um, Even that I would consider like making it. And then like filmmaking and acting and all of that, like I guess just playing a for acting, let's say, playing a role in something that I'm passionate about, a storyline that I'm passionate about, and I care to tell, and successfully telling that character's story and delivering that emotion. I think that's really important, like as an actor, rather than like the glam or whatever that comes with
Yeah.
it. It's more about like delivering that story and impacting people.
No, for sure. That and I'm glad you said that. That should be held at the paramount. Like that should be what you strive towards as an artist. Like all that other stuff, the vanity, the fame, all like the glamour,
Hmm.
should be, put to the side. In fact, it should be considered a perk, if anything, like just something
Yeah.
like added on to, if you get to that level.
Yeah.
My biggest thing whenever how I explain it to people, I don't know why I aim that high,
Hmm.
like for the Tarantino, it's like a joke or it's like a story when you're telling someone. Like I
Yeah.
could tell you a story, but how cool would it be if a million people heard the same story?
Yeah.
right? And I got that but it was a good story where you got that reaction.
Yeah.
I love the audience's reaction. I miss the movie theaters, like the
Yeah.
gasps, the sighs, the cries.
Yeah.
Um, it's just like Tarantino says, like playing the strings. Just
Hmm.
your movie is able to, what you write on the page, your imagination is able to move a human being,
Yeah.
influence them, or inspire
Yeah.
them to think or act a certain way. And that's something that I've always been intrigued by
Yeah.
since I was a child. So
Hmm.
and I can't shake it. I can't. I've tried to say it's not about that. It's not about, but
Yeah.
I always think that, like, obviously the next project I do, it's not going to be
Hmm.
the biggest ever. But what
Hmm.
I'm saying is it's a step towards how do I get to that level? Do you
Yeah,
know what
no, for sure.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I get what you mean by the Tarantino level. Like I get that, I respect that. Like I know what you mean. It's a completely different feeling with the being in the theater and seeing the impact that it's having. Like that you can't replace that experience. I feel like.
No, you can't. And
Yeah.
it's so sad with the streaming service. That's another subject, another conversation for
Yeah.
another time.
Yeah.
But yeah, the streaming service, like, convenient, efficient, whatever have you, but people are gonna feel it after a while because it is a social experience.
Yeah.
They
I feel
feel it
like
with Blockbuster.
I'm starting to
Yeah.
feel it like now where I'm like, sometimes I'm not like zoned in because I'm watching it on my like laptop with so many like things going on in the
Yeah.
background sometimes.
Yeah, and you just when you're in a movie theater, it forces you, especially again with the social media age,
Hmm.
you don't even think about looking at your phone
Yeah.
because A, it's rude, and B, you're in a dark movie theater watching it. Like you don't think to do that.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, hopefully they'll come back. Hopefully it'll be safe enough
Yeah.
to go back, but it won't be for some time because it's one of the worst places you could be, especially around this time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. No, it's true. I
But
feel like movie theaters are more likely to come back though over concerts, right?
yeah, well, no, concerts I feel are for sure coming back first in movie theaters, in my opinion.
You
And
think so?
I know it's just because there's so much more money in with like well,
Yeah. Money
you know what
wise.
yeah, money wise, but like the artists that they sell out
Mm.
these arenas, right? Like
Yeah.
50,000, and I can't see them like completely saying, yeah, like they're gonna find a way to make those concerts happen.
Hmm.
That's a lot of money, right? Because they
Yeah.
tour the world, and it's just such a huge market. Like we
Yeah.
know so many people that love concerts.
Hmm.
I love movies more, but what I'm saying is there's people that love concerts more than they do movies. Like I knew
Yeah.
someone that went to, like, I think 1,000 concerts, if that's possible, like something crazy like that.
Wow.
Yeah, something, I don't
That's
know.
crazy.
Maybe it was an exaggerate, but maybe 100. I don't know, but it was something crazy. And I said, yeah, I've only been to like three. You know what I mean? And like, yeah, but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Time will tell how everything's gonna plan out.
Yeah. I
And
think
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
selling out a stadium would be my Tarantino dream.
Yeah,
Like, you
see,
know what? But like I keep thinking like, oh, it's so far away, or like sometimes I'll
same.
doubt myself, like it's never gonna happen, or it'll just be a dream that's gonna just who knows like where it can go, but it's a
I
dream
know
that
it's
I'm
the
just like,
biggest fear.
yeah,
But you know what? I'm glad you admitted that because, there's nothing wrong, by the way, with being modest. Like, I don't want to be at that like that on stage, whatever. But you
yeah,
clearly there's nothing wrong with that. Like having a big
hmm,
dream like that, and working towards every day getting to that
yeah,
point. You know,
hmm,
I'm afraid too. You never know. And
yeah,
a lot of people say, "Oh, you can't have that. You have to be in it full force." And it's like, yeah, okay, I am. I don't, like, relax. It's just I have those thoughts where it's like you never know, all right? And
yeah,
I think the best way to counter it is, like we discussed this whole podcast, is just keep going, keep putting out stuff,
yeah,
and look for the small milestones. You'll have your time. I always say that if you're really meant to have a voice, or really
hmm,
meant to be known, your
hmm,
audience will find you. The market will find you. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, it doesn't come. I know people say luck and all this stuff,
hmm,
and I believe in those things, but at the same time, it's like, I believe in, is it meant to be?
right,
A lot of
yeah,
people don't like to hear that, but it's the reality because there's so many artists that I know that are talented that aren't famous. There's so many artists that are famous and they're not talented.
hmm,
And it's like something happened along their path. They
yeah.
crossed with the right person at the right time. They knew the right, technique. I don't know. But if you hear any
Sometimes it's
successful,
just a number
exactly,
game,
a
like
number game. If you hear any
yeah,
successful story, right? it comes down to, there's always that one guy, one figure, that push. You
Hmm.
always hear it. If you hear anyone successful or famous, they always say, yeah, if it wasn't for this person, I owe my life to them,
Yeah.
because they did all the work to get to that point, but that person just put them in a different realm, you
Yeah.
know? So
Yeah.
it's very important people pay attention to that, because I fight on people that go, there's no such thing as luck. It's all hard work. I'm like, yes, yes, yes. But you have to cross paths with the right people sometimes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's only so much work you can put in.
It's true. It's true. There's like these many ladders that we can't climb, that like only if somebody that we know has already climbed that ladder and is willing to help you climb in right
Exactly.
after them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But on that note, I want to thank you again, Jazé, for coming on the podcast and discussing your journey. It's been really insightful, really helpful, I believe, to a lot of people. And
Thank
I
you for
plan to
having me.
yeah, and I plan to have more of these conversations in the future, just documenting our journey. And I think it's so
Yeah.
important that we have that transparency and show people that we're not just pumping out content. We're not just making, creative pieces. We're humans. We
Yeah.
have our own thoughts and our own desires and our own flaws, just like you guys
Hmm.
listening. And that's something that I always want to advocate. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. You have anything else you want to say before we leave?
No, I mean, I just appreciate you having me on. I appreciate our conversation, and like you said, it's like I think we were just touching the tip of the ice. We barely like dove in into like get going hard in on these conversations, but
For sure.
these conversations can always go on for like much longer.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. But
Yeah.
that's the beauty about, we'll have you back, and we'll definitely dive in more about what's going on in our lives, what we're
Yeah.
creating, and what we're experiencing, what's challenging us. I think that's very important.
Yeah, no, that sounds good.
Great.
Thank you for
Uh,
this conversation.
yeah, for sure, for sure. It's been a pleasure. So having said that, guys, thank you again for listening. Thank you again, Jazé Leads, and we'll talk soon.